have two tasks. One, we wanted to make sure that the task list, the 9 pages and the 53 goals and objectives that the board had identified, one, first accurately reflect all that the board wanted to get across, and two, since we didn't prioritize any of them that night, are they in the proper location? Are they short-term? Are they appropriate to be short-term or long-term? And do you agree with the high, medium, and low slotting? That was first and foremost. And if we get to it, then I've also taken the liberty of taking a stab at a 2010 goal statement, which attempts to compile as many of those short-range goals into, I think, 5 goal statements for the year 2010. First and foremost, if we could get into the 9 sheets and see if it accurately reflects what it was the board wanted to communicate. And let me go one step further, that once we do get this process completed, staff will then come back with a work program for each of these to identify what it is that the town will be doing or the staff will be doing in order to implement each of these, very similar to what you've seen in years past. So as soon as we get your concurrence to the goal statements, then we'll go ahead and come up with the staff work plan. Page by page, comments, questions?
I don't know if folks all got a chance to review them, but any comments that people have on them up front? Or do you want to go through them page by page?
Page by page is fine. I was wondering, is this how they're going to be worded up on the wall?
What we've done, recognizing there are 53 goal statements that the board had come up with,
right.
23 of them new. 30 of them are carryover. Of the 23 new, there are 20 new short-term goals. What we've attempted to do was assimilate all of them, or as close to all of them as we can, find some commonality, and then come up with the goal statement for the wall. Okay. So you've got both of those. You've got the first draft of the 2010 Town Board goals, right. Correct, okay. Which takes into account all of the things that we talked about at the retreat. And then you've got the individual pages in the back.
Okay. Well, I guess I sent around to board some comments on the goal statements that I saw, and it seemed like a few that I was interested in seeing a few more added, and because I wasn't able to be at the meeting, I had to sort of do it by phone and all that, and I appreciate people making those accommodations. I was actually quite disappointed that there weren't more new things. It seemed like we, supposedly accomplished a lot of stuff last year, and I was hoping that we would have, that there would be more new, not just continuation. It might be my take on what these goals are, and maybe I'm thinking of goals as more vision rather than sort of what our work plan is, or what our staff work plan is, and maybe that's part of where my disconnect comes from. But I was kind of disappointed that there weren't more new things on the list, that there were very few rewordings even in the header topics sort of thing. And I wanted to see a couple more things added in. I wanted to see more specificity about business visits, retention, outreach. I wanted to see something about a climate smart push. I wanted to see a clear sort of repairing of communications with some of the stakeholders that we have, not just, something fairly specific. I wanted to see some emphasis on a livable, walkable town in some degree. I wanted to see something on the library plan process and a process for involving citizens, so that we would, once we have that's sort of presuming a positive vote, or I guess even not a positive vote, we've got to figure out something about what we might do for libraries. But some citizen involvement process that would be part of this year's tasks, and then also seriously investigating service sharing arrangements with neighboring towns. And those are just a few of the ones that I thought were important on the list the long list that I submitted before that I didn't see on this. I didn't know if they kind of didn't get brought up because I wasn't there, or if they got discussed and turned down during times when I couldn't be on the phone or something. Anyway, that's kind of where I was coming from on that.
I think everything that you've just listed off, with the exception of walkable communities, is included in the 9-page goal list at some point. Everything from selling the referendum on the maintaining of shared library services to climate smart to everything you just listed, except walkable communities. I don't remember that being discussed at length during the board's retreat.
It's not the library plan education. I'm talking about once the library plan is in, we bring citizens in and we start figuring out what it is we want to do after the first 2 years. So it's a little, and we start right away. So it's not something that's left till the last 4 months, like we tend to do. So that's, I think, where it's a completely different thing than library education about the ballot. So. And it didn't, and those things didn't make sort of that top level that makes it onto the goals. And I thought they were more important than, gee, they're on that list. I think they need to be elevated and be on the things that show up on some of these, at least, need to be on the thing that shows up on the board, the poster, as your file called it. Oh, and now I'm done talking. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question then on that? Were they in the plan here under short range, long range? Did you see them in the long list? Were the plans in there?
I didn't see them in the top list, and that's why I was looking for them. I wanted them to be elevated.
You mean like the high priority? Oh, okay, so they were in there. The one thing I had, and again, that question I asked you in the beginning, what goals were going to be up on, promote economic development opportunities, those are actually going to be the goals though, right? That's where you've grouped it in, or not? I just wanted to clarify because you said when you grouped them together.
This was the first shot.
Okay.
I mean, we can attempt to wordsmith, and we have in years past. The first sheet, 2010 Town Board Goals,
Yeah.
promoting economic development opportunities, economic sustainability, public
Right.
infrastructure, and the like,
Right.
was an effort to take as many of the things as you had identified at your retreat,
Right.
find
The commonalities.
a commonality and appropriate heading
Right.
for them, and batching them.
Okay. Which I agree, that's what we need to do and everything to get the goals up there. But I think when I hear what Lisa is saying, and when I look at these, it doesn't say, I think one of the big goals of the town has been to encourage a little more green initiatives and different things like that. And I don't see it in the goals any way that you would get that just looking at the big goals, the ones that, economic development. And so I'm wondering if maybe, again, for wordsmithing, we might be able to group them in a way that might include something like that in the main goal as well.
Yeah, it's halfway down public services. And public services?
Yeah, continue
That's
implementation
not-
of
yeah.
energy
And a lot of
self-sufficiency
these are-
initiatives and promote energy conservation.
But what people are going to see, in general, they're just going to see promote economic development. They're only going to see the highlighted or the bolded part, right? So that's all I'm saying, is that maybe we can,
I
in
get
some
you.
way, include it in there that some of those stand out a little bit more, in some way that words imply that we're looking to do a little bit more encouragement that way.
And I think thank you, I agree. And part of my issue was that this front sheet had a lot of identical wording to the previous year. And that was really troubling to me. I thought we'd finished a lot of that, and we were beginning our sort of next thing, and not sort of continue this, continue that, but also look at some of the new things. And the number of new things to old on this sheet is much more old than new. On this front page.
Well, we moved long-term things that weren't completed into short-term. So those are continuing goals. And I don't think those should have gone away. Things that weren't completed shouldn't have gone away.
Yeah, I agree.
So my thoughts were that that's all that continued. I guess it's a question of what you want to, because my reaction to your comment in the email, Lisa, was the same as Scott just articulated, that everything that you said you felt was not highlighted is actually in here, but it's not highlighted, I guess, enough to your satisfaction. I'm fine with that if you want to call that out more. But everything is in here except for the community.
Walkability,
Yeah.
community, we never discussed that.
And I'm not sure how we do that in one year.
I'm not sure that we did bring it up, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we've been.
Dancing around.
Well, it's a lot
Yeah.
of our goals and stuff like that. So I think if I were just a resident looking at this, I would go promote economic development. Well, that's kind of every town's job, Some of these ones might they don't seem quite as descriptive as I'm like. That's all.
Or as motivating, or
Yeah,
as
or-
energizing, or as, anything. They're just,
And I know, Scott, you
seemed
just
like a
said they were
goal.
first pass, and it's just a grouping of things together and stuff, and so I'm just saying where I'd hope to see it go a little more.
I mean, I think if you're trying to do town board goals on one sheet, you're basically giving an overview and no details.
Right. You
And then the
can,
next
but-
sheet is just all the details under each one written further out.
But if you say promote renewable energy and green
Okay,
initiatives
wording.
and things like that, is completely different than improve public services or,
Exactly.
certain things like that.
It has those buzzwords, yes.
And
Yeah.
it's public services, and this one is also getting, not just sort of town services, but getting the residents to get better service in their own homes, and so I think it's a little bit, it's broader than expand public services. And it's, I guess broader in one way and narrower in another. It's focused on green stuff, so.
And one more question I had on this. Oh, sorry, I have the pen.
Look at him now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You can look.
I didn't even know you were here.
No, it's over there.
Oh, he's actually here. I didn't even know it.
Because it's February, right? In a month and a half, we'll have new board members. So I can't remember how we do this. That we keep. We're going to do this, or you're all going to revisit this again.
I thought we were going to do it, and then in March and May,
April.
people could.
I was just wondering, does it get up there before that, or are you guys waiting before it's actually finished?
Whenever it's
up there
done, it
before.
gets up there.
Okay.
It was up there already when we came on the board.
I don't remember.
This is your last.
The brief
chance to
history,
shape
when this was,
the board.
when this was discussed at the
Exactly.
board's first meeting in January, the mayor and I had opined that with the upcoming election, it was our thought that this was a process that we would wait until after the new election. And a majority of the board said, no, we don't want to wait. We don't want to lose the first third of a year. We want to do the process now. So we scheduled the retreat for a date we thought everybody could be there. We've gone through the process that we've traditionally gone through, and we are moving it quicker than normal.
Okay.
But, I mean, we don't normally get this turnaround within a week, and you don't usually see the summary statement until you've agreed on
Yeah.
the more detailed sheet, but recognizing that we're already a little bit behind the curve, we wanted to race it through.
Sure. Okay. So I get to decide what y'all get to work on for the next year.
So was this? Sorry that I have conflicts. Couldn't get here earlier, but where did you leave this?
I tried to start with the back nine. Does it fairly represent what the board discussed? The consensus that the board had reached during its retreat? Is everything included? Did I miss anything? Are they properly prioritized, or should they be shifted? That was the first aspect of it. And as Lisa indicated, the walkability isn't there. And I don't recall, and I just looked at my notes again, I don't recall that even being discussed. I do remember the discussion as an example about what role the town should be taking in terms of business retention. And at the end of the day, the only thing we came to consensus on was, let's review the incentive policy, because it might be geared too much to the big ticket stuff, not to the small stuff. We went from that very big topic of business retention to what is it that we can do and where should we start, and it came down to let's review what we're preparing and willing to do.
Okay.
And I think that you got everything that we spoke about, that we'd all discussed that while we were there. I think, Lisa, you had that on your sheet that you had given us, but I don't know that we ever discussed it as a group. That's all.
Like the walkability.
The walkability
We
part.
did not. I mean, I don't recall.
Yeah.
That didn't get discussed.
But yeah, it looked like, the Little League field and just all that sort of stuff. I thought that.
And I took some license. If it was something that was going to take some time, I might have put it in the long-range column beyond a year. If it was something that could be achievable, I put it within the short.
Get those
Took a lot of license in high, medium, and low.
Yeah.
I think
All kind of fuzzy to me anyway
good.
sometimes. So.
Well, I don't know, I guess maybe if we could break out the green things out of the public services one, and if we could come up with some titles for these that are a little bit more motivational or something, that would move in the right direction, I think. And maybe make sure and cover the second part of the library, not just the education and the ballot issue, and then stop there, but talk about what happens after that. I think that's really important. And I don't know, did I see, is service sharing negotiation kind of stuff in there? When I didn't see it on the front page, I didn't really look a lot for it in the later. So I think that's something we need to be
The only one that
considering.
really received any discussion, there was agreement to delete one reference to cooperative efforts with the city of Louisville, and there was a discussion, and we increased its priority on the discussions of possibly merging parks operations with the cities, between the two cities.
Oh, I know, the other one that disturbed me, and maybe I just wasn't in the discussion, abandoned CAC, that was a majority of the board
It
said
was
that?
unanimous.
Unanimous?
I was told to do it that night. Obviously, I don't have the ability to do it, but yeah.
I mean, people don't have to be on it if they don't want to. Yeah.
The guidance I received that night was it couldn't happen soon enough.
Wow.
Although
I would have voted against that.
I've struck something in there that said, first and foremost, was to come up with a suitable replacement using the website. But yes, that was very clear.
That's probably a mistake.
I think so.
When I see it as a goal, jumping out. It's probably.
That's what we're trying to
Yeah.
get to.
Yeah, so,
It probably seemed like a good idea at the time.
yeah, maybe when you said about looking at an alternative, though, so I think there are a lot of problems with the CAC the way it is, but I do recognize the importance a lot of people find for getting in contact with other people in the community regarding community issues, so.
I guess people are using it for some things they didn't used to in the past, and it's been valuable, and, what about a contractor, what about this, that sort of stuff's been pretty interesting. I haven't seen a lot of that in the past, and I think it's a place for people to communicate, and people who don't want to read it don't have to subscribe, It's voluntary.
Well, I definitely think that we should pursue something for its replacement.
Or maybe the goal just be look into whether there is a viable alternative. I don't know what the wording is, but.
Well, actually, Deb brought up seeking alternatives to give more citizen input, and maybe that's how we should frame that. Instead of abandoning what we have, seeking alternatives to improve citizen input.
So like better use of the CAC included, that's a good thing too.
I don't think we can change the use of the CAC. It is what it is.
It is, and it's.
I don't know what, but it actually struck me as a negative when I read it, even though we all unanimously agreed that night. I think it was maybe a reaction, but anyway, it was like, but when I read it as a goal, it's like, that's kind of a negative.
okay.
But I think if we could find some kind of a replacement that would better serve the community in a more positive note, we should be looking at that.
Scott, what did you say with using the website?
The rest of it reads, develop a communications complaint link on the town's website.
Oh,
And that goes back to our discussion about an enhanced communication plan last
Right.
year. One of the drawbacks, if you will, of the CAC, it's not monitored, it's not in any way governed, controlled, and the town doesn't respond to things.
Yeah.
Yet frequently you'll find people that will, because they think it's the town's, that they'll attempt to communicate with the board through it.
Yeah.
And then they don't hear a response back, and then they get frustrated.
right. Yeah, because I don't even.
If you want to communicate with the town, call
Right.
town hall, get on the website,
Yeah.
contact somebody individually, but don't assume that this mass email
Yeah.
is an effective means of getting your point across when we don't have a mechanism established for monitoring it, responding to it.
Yeah. So that's a good point, that we need to make sure it's clear what it is and what it isn't. So there might be.
It's great as a community bulletin board.
Yeah, or.
You know, I'm looking for I'm looking for a vendor to
Yeah,
replace
I think
my
it's
gutters.
Yeah,
I lost my cat, whatever, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just need to be clear.
Probably some wordsmithing about, either redesigning the CAC or put something out on the CAC that this is a community bulletin board and is not monitored by town. Some of us might subscribe or some of us might not, but so it's clear. So this is, if you have questions, please refer your questions to the town website, something like that.
There was a lot of discussion about outreach efforts. I mean, there was the community events, there was the reactivation of the youth advisory, there was the let's get a minimum of annual meetings between the board and each of its advisory groups. 4 or 5 different.
A lot of that was a takeoff on what Lisa's suggestions were, meeting with businesses, meeting with
The reference to the HOAs.
Yeah, and the.
Oh, the
HOAs.
chamber.
Yeah, the chamber. So, I think, yeah. I had a specific thing that I'd like to, I don't know, either change or soften or whatever. I was kind of brainstorming on how we could help with employment assistance, and so on economic development, so back in the specifics, and I explore opening an employment assistance office. Well, I don't think that's feasible really for us to do, and there's a county, but I don't know whether we can explore opportunities for helping with job assistance or something like that. I don't know. What you guys could think about what we might as a town do, but I don't think it's reasonable. And even though I use those words, I don't think it's reasonable or maybe right for us to use our assets to duplicate an employment office here.
It's under low priority, but I agree. It didn't seem like the right thing to me either.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it realistically, I think, maybe no, but something else, I don't know what.
And not knowing what form it's going to take, and I'm ad-libbing here, but the premise of, is there a possibility of getting a Boulder County outreach office to open up here 10 hours a week in the community?
Or come in once every quarter or a couple of weeks. So.
As I indicated, we're opening up a census office in here for the month of March 15th to April 15th. Is it?
I keep hearing how people really need help in redoing their resumes, that things have changed, life has changed, the world has changed, and if you're not selling yourself, employers aren't even looking at what you're sending them. And people need some kind of help in that regard. I don't know where they get it.
Get out of the corporate speak.
Well, don't just list what you've done in the past. You've got to sell yourself.
Maybe more of a networking opportunity or some sort of thing like that. I know we had talked maybe even a job fair or that sort of stuff, but just something that, I don't know, we host once a month or that sort of thing, but maybe not a permanent fixture.
But it's very real that this recession is hitting home.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I hear quite a few people unemployed. So.
Yep, it seems like every day I'm hearing of somebody,
Right.
another person.
Everyone knows someone who's not working.
So I'm sorry, what was this?
My suggestion is if Scott could think about it or staff could think about something short of opening an assistance office that we might help with. And your idea of maybe having the county come in periodically to town and we could announce that they're going to be here or something.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings between 10 and 12, or, I
I
don't
doubt
know.
they'll- Yeah,
Once every
yeah.
other
Or
week.
just
Whatever.
Once every other week or
yeah.
something.
Whatever would work, because I don't know what their
Wednesday, Friday,
capabilities are.
Right.
But some kind of outreach to our town that our residents could easily get to.
Okay. That's the kind of feedback.
It's just,
It may have been overly optimistic or,
that was what I said. And when I
presumptive to try to take all of that and then prepare the goal statements. I'm hearing what you're saying about wanting public services to read more green, or maybe just have a separate one. We had an environmental initiatives,
Yes.
expand environmental initiatives last year.
Yeah, my recommendation is to kind of put 1 and 2 somewhat together and break the town board goals, not the specifics. To wordsmith that some, and then break out a green initiative bulletins, since I think that's what our residents want to see and hear about also. I like walkability, but, basically, I think what walkability would be is putting sidewalks in original town. So I'm not sure if you want to be.
I don't know if they
I don't know
want
if you really want to go there.
No, but I guess maybe it can wait until the town center or something too, because I'm looking for walkability across,
Yeah.
over to
Through the
Marketplace,
town,
within the Marketplace, that sort of stuff.
Well, I think
It's
it's
the
something
Marketplace
that,
that irks me.
I think it ties into a lot of things. Obviously, we're looking for ways to make it safer for kids walking to school. We're traffic and safety. That's
And there's-
part of what walkability
And those vehicles that aren't quite normal vehicles that we approved, you know what I mean?
yeah, those electric vehicles and things like
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Multimodal, it's.
Yeah,
sort of
so
stuff.
I think we do. I don't know that we have it.
I don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, I think it's part of our trails master plan and sort
Have
of
that
generality, but,
connectivity.
I think we're not quite there yet because a lot of it's dependent upon the town center development, especially, if you're crossing under 36 or developing trails that would not be on McCaslin. Those basically all are in the town center property.
I
So,
think it's a big piece of taming the chasm.
Yes.
It helped to get across that street alive.
yeah. So do you want to,
I'll take a second shot and.
yeah.
And any other specific words, either adds, deletes, the CAC, if it was,
Yeah.
we've had 10 days to rethink, and it's,
Yeah, the
Your-
CAC
your
serves
conversations
a-
about the
what's the idea is
assistance?
just putting something on the CAC. I mean, I think people, like you say, there are,
Disclaimer.
some sort of disclaimer, but like you say, it's not. If they think it's going to be notification of all town board members for a question, it's clearly not happening there. But then again, it does serve a purpose, as a bulletin board. So, I think either we open up something new, or like you say, put a disclaimer on there or something.
okay.
Change the name, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say council, it just says citizen,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it says advisory, isn't it?
I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, it does.
Originally, it was Citizens Advisory Committee, which was actually a committee.
So
Yeah,
maybe we
so it
should
says
close it
advisory,
and
so-
open a bulletin board, or just change
Yeah,
it to
town bulletin board or
whatever.
Or just citizens bulletin board, so
Yeah.
that you don't associate with, being
Yeah,
the board.
because advisory does. I would think then the board should be listening in on it.
And while we're on the discussion of some of the green ones, and I go back to the goal sheets, not the summary sheet, but promote climate smart and
Yeah.
other energy conservation efforts.
Right.
And there was a lot of discussion, including offering town programs and incentives. And we talked about the Erie example where it was replace your toilet, bring the old porcelain down, and we'll give you $20. I don't want the porcelain at town hall, but if that's a way to reduce water leakage, water consumption, those are the kinds of things that we were envisioning and that we talked at length about, wanting that we would even get into the promotion of doing it, not just riding on the coattails as an example of Boulder County. So, it was discussed at length. It may not have made it to the.
Into the summary.
Well, I'd like this summary to have some inspiration.
Because Juanita, you do the gardening series, right? Can't you come up with one of the programs on how to put plants in the old toilets and
Oh, yeah,
things
that-
like that?
Yard art, sadly, yard art's not allowed. Darn.
First, we need a break from the HOA to allow that.
Yeah, no yard art.
Your backyard.
Okay, we'll take another shot and bring it back.
All the yard art you want.
Once again, sorry, I was late, but thanks for the turnaround. I mean,
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
last time I did this, it was, I don't know, 6 months down the road that
Yeah,
we were
well,
talking about
I'm
it.
kind of amazed how you make sense out of our stream of consciousness.
And I suspect that this is going to
I
be
agree.
changing after maybe not, after an election, whoever gets elected, maybe they'll have a different emphasis on things, and so it's, might change after that. But
On the
Unless you
green,
quickly
green
put it up on the
initiative,
wall.
on the green initiative topic,
fix.
That's right. Up on the wall, it's there.
Second item in your workshop agenda was a short presentation on the open space management plan. Juanita's going to make a quick overview of it. It's rather lengthy, but there are probably, at the end of the day, there are probably 4 or 5 bullets. Most of the information that you're about to see, and if you took the time to read all of the material, you've already seen and read. But this is a guide for both the town board and staff on how it wants to maintain its public open spaces, which have been acquired. So without further ado, Juanita.
Thank you.
so even
Juanita Dominguez, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Open Space.
80? No, last year it was canceled, so I don't know. Couldn't get on the flight.
Again, just a brief presentation. Why a management plan at all? We want to continue to be good stewards of our open space. Really tonight, I just wanted to give you a few ideas on what staff has put together and brought forward to the Open Space Advisory Committee. But really, it's about being good stewards to our open space. We know that open space is a valued natural resource. The folks of the town have told us that time and time again. As a matter of fact, 96% of the town residents wish to continue to preserve our open spaces and think it is either very important or somewhat important. These guidelines just give us consistent practices, give staff the ability to consistently maintain the open space areas, gives tools for ecological principles, and also really promotes our preservation, promotes native plants, promotes, again, open space. What we're talking about when we talk about this particular plan, it is the natural open spaces, these spaces that the 0.3% sales tax helps acquire. These are the properties. I'm not going to read this to you, but just wanted to make sure that we understood what we were talking about as far as the properties. The town open space owned by the town, Arsenault, the 13.45 acres that was purchased. Harney and Listoka, the 30 acres that was purchased, that was our very first purchase. Madsen just recently purchased at 1.5 acres, and the Oxner parcel just recently purchased, again, 13.5 acres that we, the town owns easements on the Verhey property, which is 155 acres, and the Mayhofer single tree property, which is part of the Oxner parcel. I wanted to show the board a little snippet of our open spaces, and it's great to see because what we have here now is one contiguous piece of open space that the town of Superior owns. This is the Oxner parcel here. The 4-acre easement is here, the Madsen property here, and then the Arsenault property. Now, all of our open spaces within the original town are contiguous to one another, and then the Oxner and the Arsenault piece are contiguous to Boulder County open space. Here's the other open spaces, again, west of McCaslin. This is McCaslin Boulevard here, middle of Rock Creek, Colton going east, and the Colton Trail going west. The Harney-Listoka area, 30 acres here. This is the Verhey property, the 155-acre easement. This is the piece, the only piece west that the town or county does not own. Again, Listoka is contiguous to Verhey, also contiguous, again, to Boulder County open space.
That makes good sense.
So some of the special attributes regarding the open space that the town owns. The Arsenault piece is very interesting because it was the location of the industrial mines, a very great cultural resource there. The mines ran from 1895 to about 1945. That is the location of the future trail link. As you know, Boulder County will be installing a trail from Singletree in the original town all the way to Colton later on this year, hopefully in the fall, once they get the situation settled with the Fracco Ditch Company. But again, the beginning of that particular trail will be traversing through Arsenault. This is the area that we call the Prairie Dog Education Area. For those of you board members who were here when the Prairie Dog Management Plan was adopted, it was important for the board at that time to make sure that that there was a prairie dog education area provided. Well, the Arsenault property makes perfect sense for that. It's not near a development of any kind, and it is contiguous to Boulder County's prairie dog education area. The Harney-Listoka piece, that's really high-quality open space. Rock Creek runs right through the property, and that is no prairie dog area. Madsen, special attributes for that. It's adjacent to Coal Creek. It's also adjacent to Arsenault. Provides a riparian forest that's right adjacent to it. Is also an NPD, which we call a no prairie dog educational or no prairie dog area. The Oxner piece, it's adjacent to Boco open space, Boulder County open space. The riparian forest and the Cottonwood Grove is a very high value there. And it has and holds the 4-acre conservation easement, which was the Hake homestead, the original homestead of the Hake family. You can still see a foundation and a portion of the stone fence in that area, as well as an old cattle, I can't remember what they're called, cattle area. Sorry about that.
Cattle holding area.
Yeah, and again, it's a no prairie dog area. So in the general practices, typically the open spaces are not mowed. No prairie dogs are allowed on any of these parcels except for the Arsenault parcel. Weed management is huge. This is probably what staff spends the majority of their time on when we talk about management and maintenance of the open space. It is mandated by the state that we provide for a integrated weed program. As part of that, we do biological removal, chemical removal, mechanical removal, and cultural removal of weeds. As far as the revegetation, we do that when it's allowable, meaning that if there are areas where have become bare due to some of this weed control that we do, we will continue to try and revegetate as long as we have the funds available. The town does code enforcement on our properties. The law enforcement is done by Boulder County. Resource monitoring. Resource monitoring is very important. Staff spends an annual, a lot of time on an annual prairie dog survey. Also on weed monitoring, we do that annually as well. There are weed inventories that we take every 5 years. This is the 5th year, 2010. We will be doing weed inventory on our open spaces. And we also provide for grassland evaluations every 3 years. In conclusion, the open space management plan provides for, again, consistent practices, planned resource monitoring, annual prioritization of our maintenance, and we continue to promote open space as a valued resource. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that was understood, there is no budgetary obligation for this plan. This comes up on an annual basis through our budget process. Currently, we have $30,000 for this management plan budgeted for this year. Staff prioritizes that again on an annual basis.
Roughly. And that would include revegetation of an area, prairie dog removal in one of our NPDs, those kinds of tasks. It's not a planning process. It's actually a maintenance process for all of those properties.
And that comes out of the open space tax fund?
Yes.
Okay.
George?
Yeah, we talk about this conservative easement on the 4 acres. Does the town own the outright deed to that property?
Not yet.
Wasn't that included in the Oxner purchase?
No. It's included in the Oxner plan. We bought 13 acres. We will be receiving an additional 4 acres from Oxner Remington after their final subdivision, final development plan. That will include the 4-acre conservation easement. We bought the conservation easement from Arsenault. We will actually get title to the property from Oxner as part of the Oxner development.
Because I thought it was on the assumption it was under a conservative easement, but the town was to receive that quite a while ago. And evidently, we haven't received it yet.
Not yet.
That's why it's included in Arsenal.
Right.
There was quite a bit of debate about that before.
Lisa?
So my question's on a different one. How do you keep the educated prairie dogs on our snow?
Well, what we do is we, well, right now there are very few, if any at all, at
Oh,
this
really?
time. However, they will come back. Now, to the west of that, there is Boulder County Open Space. They also have prairie dogs, and so those prairie dogs will move east to our Arsenault property.
Not to mention all the rest of it.
As
Yeah.
far as controlling them for the original town residents, we have a variety of ways that we do that. One is a fencing barrier. We use chicken wire along the fence line and up through the fence line so that the prairie dogs cannot go from Arsenault onto a second or third. If they do, we actually go in and take care of that issue immediately. There are also other barriers that we provide throughout town as well with hay bales, and that has been very effective for us as well.
But what do you do when you can't improve open space and they want to come over onto Harney-Listoka, Madsen, or Ochsner?
So currently, just as an example, we know that Boulder County has a huge prairie dog population on their property north of Colton Trail. What we have right there, right now, is we have both fencing. We have the double-wide barrier fence as far as the hay bales, and we also offer the extension of the chicken wire. We have not had a single prairie dog move through Listoka since we erected that.
Thanks.
Question, piggyback on it. So, but there's also on the Boulder County Open Space to the east of Listoka, I'm sorry, to the west of Listoka, there's been a big group that moved over there as well. Is there a fence? I can't remember if there's a fence that separates.
There's a fence, but there is not prairie dog fencing
Yeah.
as of yet. We have not found that they
They
have
are-
moved that quickly. Again, when we monitor them,
Right.
when we say we monitor them on an
Yeah.
annual basis, we actually have staff that goes out, and it's not just one time throughout the season, but several times throughout the year to continuously monitor those areas. When we feel that they're getting close enough that it's an issue for us, we will make sure that we erect a fence there.
Put a fence, okay. And then the prairie dog education area in Arsenault, is there a sign out there that currently that talks about that?
Not yet. As a matter of fact, that's one of the plans that we had in the future as far as making sure that we had an interpretive sign and also a sign for the property itself. Now, we already have on hand a property sign, but we were waiting for the installation of the trail so that we could adjust the
figure out where it
signage
should-
in the appropriate area, because we
Okay.
want to make sure that when we have the trail in place, that people don't have to move off the trail to read the signage.
Okay. And then the other question I had on the Ochsner property, on the single tree trail, will we be putting up a sign about the homestead in that there? You said on the Ochsner property was a homestead site?
There is a homestead site, and that will be part of our interpretive signage in the future, and we
Okay.
can definitely do that. And
Okay.
as soon as, we have the funds to do that, we will. As soon as,
It's an interesting piece of information.
It is, it's pretty
So,
neat.
Yeah. It's kind of-
Lisa?
What is the schedule for that kind of interpretive sign?
First, we need to own the property, but
Thank you.
very, very soon after that.
Can I ask a refresh my memory question, which is the difference in rights or responsibilities between what we have as our inventory versus what we have as easement?
Sure. Fee simple means that we purchased it, we have the deed. Easement means that we have purchased a conservation easement that says we think that this property is worth saving, worth preserving, and we assisted in the purchase of the overall fee simple with another organization, Boulder County, for instance. So we, as an easement owner, we don't have to.
We don't have the deed.
We don't have the deed.
And we don't
nor do
share the deed or anything like that. Okay.
Nor do we have the
Okay.
responsibility of maintaining that property. What we do have is the ability to give them our feedback regarding management practices as they come.
Example of that was when Boulder County came to you last year and asked for the right to lease the old homestead.
Yeah.
They own it. We're an easement holder. They need your permission.
Thanks.
Now, do we have a best practices plan for weed control?
We do. We have a huge manual that we use internally as far as the noxious type weeds, the type A's, type B's, and what we do.
And do we work cooperatively? I mean, obviously, our properties are little surrounded by huge areas of Boulder County. Do we do this in a cooperative arrangement, weed control?
Yes, we do.
And have you had discussions with Boulder County about thinning prairie dogs on their properties at all? And
We have
hopefully
not
less-
had that conversation.
Do you have any idea if they're interested in that at all, or do you have a flavor?
You know, in the recent past, they haven't had an interest in thinning, but I think that because of the plague, the plague has gone through and thinned naturally.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Great. Any other
Anything
questions?
else?
Well, thank you.
Super presentation. Thanks. Anything else? Let's see. Let's go through, I guess, the agenda for the next meeting.
Only one action item at this juncture. There's two listed, but at this point, we have the Guardian Storage Final Development Plan. You've seen the plan. You had all of the annexation discussions associated with the preliminary development plan. They completed their FDP. It's gone through the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission conducted its public hearing a week ago, at which time they unanimously recommended the board's approval of the FDP, but you'll actually be seeing that a week from now. We've continued to keep the PPA, or power purchase agreements, on there in the hopes that we will conclude our negotiations, but it's a placeholder. And the dominant discussion item for the next workshop session will be the conceptual plan reviews for Community Park East. ProStack and the Parks Department will be coming back with, based on the board's previous guidance, with some alternatives, revised plans regarding the 3-park area east of Rock Creek Parkway.
And just in terms of that discussion, we've had some internal discussion as well as in the meeting of whether or not they'd be looking at other locations of dog parks. Is that going to be sort of, I mean, not in any excruciating detail?
I haven't seen the presentation, so I don't know if they've been taking the feedback about scaling back size and cost, or if they've been looking at alternative locations.
Okay. I'm sure there will be questions at the meeting, so,
Will be discussed.
yeah. Okay.
I just had a question about Director Dominguez's presentation. Is the open space plan, is this one on the website if people wanted to look at it? Or, I know she walked out, I wasn't sure. But it's something that should probably be on.
By all means, we'll make sure that it does get added.
Right.
Anything else? So we can take a couple-minute break before the meeting starts.
Lisa.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees, the Board of Adjustments, and the Liquor Licensing Authority Board for February 8th, 2010. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Mayor Andrew Buckle,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lisa Skumatz,
Here.
Trustees Joe Cirelli,
Here,
Dana DeSouza,
Here.
Elia Gagoras, George Kuffner,
Here.
Deborah Williams,
Here.
Town Manager Scott Randall,
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry,
Here.
Town Clerk Paul Sargent here.
Thank you very much. With that, let's move to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Trustee Skumatz.
I'd like to pull out and address separately item C.
And what?
Item
7C.
C, approval of amendment to the final plat site plan for Rock Mountain Fire District.
Okay.
Excuse me, I believe if we do that, if there's a question we can answer, but if we do that, it necessitates rescheduling this for 60 days and calling for a public hearing?
We were aware of that. Okay.
I think that's the case. I think people want to speak to that particular issue, so
Okay.
I think we'll have to republish. Okay.
That will defer then agenda item
I think,
9.
that makes
I
sense.
thought we did, I thought we did some of it now then and some of it later.
No.
It should all come together.
And all these people came
No.
They're not here for that.
No, I don't think they're here for that. My guess. I don't know.
These are hockey parents.
Any other changes to tonight's agenda?
What about 8? Wait on that?
No?
No. Right. This is the last remaining meeting for
We have
that.
to do it tonight.
Okay.
We had a time.
With that change, I'll entertain a motion. By Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee D'Souza. Further discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. With that, item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Mr. Kuffner, do you have anything?
Yeah, I got it. I'm concerned on this public consent agenda item. I see nothing on there. Excuse me, about the trustees calling up board public. Is that permissible, Kendra?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If a trustee wants to call a person from the audience that's here, are they allowed to call them up to speak?
No, the person would have to come up voluntarily. You're not allowed to.
Well, I mean, you can question them and call them back up.
Well, they're there to present
I see
testimony.
nothing in here that says that we have that authority.
No,
the
we don't
mayor
have that
does.
authority to call witnesses. We have the authority to ask questions of witnesses who are up giving testimony, if that's...
Because I don't recall this in October when this was done, this was brought forward. Okay, you answered my question.
Okay.
Trustee Cirelli?
The only thing I have is I went to the opening of the museum Saturday, and I think some of you went tonight as well. It was well attended, and I'd like to extend my kudos to the Historical Commission. That's quite a labor of love, and it's a great addition to our town, and I was very impressed by it. And they had very nice attendance on Saturday with the key ingredient cookies.
Okay. Trustee Skumatz?
So to follow on, as the historic liaison person here, I asked Larry Dorsey if he could be here to talk a little bit about the summary, but he had a scheduling conflict. So I wanted to thank the historical committee, particularly Larry Dorsey, Karen, I practiced with this, but Wally Woligorsky, Bob Morgan, Denzel Acklin, and Mary and David Cartwright for all their work in getting that museum together and improved. They had a Saturday event, as Trustee Cirelli mentioned, with about an estimated 125 attendees. Rooms were actually full. But what's particularly useful for those who couldn't make it, is that the hometown newspaper had an article last Wednesday, the Daily Camera had one on February 5th, and including a video which is online and viewable. So that might be useful for those who couldn't make it. And the Historic Committee wanted to also express their very sincere thanks to Martin Toth and Bob Schmitz. Martin, they said, has been really a terrific asset and really helpful to them. So kudos to town staff on that. And I did go to the auxiliary meeting, I guess, that was tonight, for those who couldn't make it on Saturday, and it was really great to see the events and to see the 8th grade high school, or 8th grade graduation picture of one of our esteemed members, George Kuffner. It's charming. Okay.
Just last year, right?
Hope was.
It was very interesting. I wanted to ask a follow-up question about one of the things that got raised last time, which had to do with what can we be looking at for a schedule for the parking lot for the trailhead, and maybe we can get an update on that. That would be really great. I couldn't go to the Consortium of Cities meeting, so I'm hoping that Deb Williams will be able to, Trustee Williams will be able to update us on that. The Louisville Library Committee, in order to keep track of where we are and what our language is and all that sort of stuff, scheduled another meeting later this month that I'll be attending as a special thing. And I think that's it. Thanks.
So you asked a question about the parking lot. I don't know if there is an update.
We've received a sketch plan from Boulder County Parks and Open Space that identified a roughly 8 to 10 space interim parking arrangement that was going to be made in the old trail area as you're heading west. Again, strictly an interim improvement. They figured it would cost them about $1,000 and that they could get it done within a matter of a couple of weeks using their own crews. Juanita and I have another meeting with their staff, Mr. Stewart and some others on the Parks and Open Space staff, to talk about the permanent improvement, including some of the other discussions we had at the board retreat, to ensure that the permanent improvement, 53 parking spaces, restroom facilities, kiosk, all of that, get done in FY 2010. And that meeting is scheduled for sometime early next week.
Thanks. I'm glad there's an interim, near-term, very soon
Yes.
solution. Yeah, thanks.
We want to keep the cars off of McCaslin,
Yeah.
parking on the shoulder.
Let's see. Excuse me. I attended Rocky Flats Stewardship Council meeting, and the update is that all the remediation appears to be working appropriately. There's a couple of dams there that need some repair, but those are just small storage facilities. And actually, most of the dams there are anticipated to be breached to improve the wildlife. So that's always good news for our community. And I've been approached by the mayor of Golden about signing a letter to join in mediation regarding the Northwest Parkway, and I said that probably makes sense. I'm not sure if they're really interested in mediation, but for a small dollar figure, it probably makes sense. So I'll sign that letter unless there's opposition. Okay. Trustee D'Souza.
I don't think I have anything to report.
Okay. Trustee Williams.
Okay, I went to a Consortium of Cities meeting last week, and Boulder County is looking at supporting 3 policies that are going through the legislature session soon, and these 3 areas of interest are what is called Support HB 1107, which is urban renewal limitations regarding agricultural lands to limit blighting of agricultural land. Basically, would have to meet at least 5 qualifications, which I won't get into. You can look on the website for Boulder County. But typically, they provide public financial assistance to truly blighted urban areas to developers so that they can develop these areas that tend to be more expensive. Which is an unfair advantage when you're blighting an agricultural land. There's really no, very little cost in doing that as far as repairing the land. So they want to make more limitations on that to prevent developers using taxpayer money. Then there is an
Can I ask just briefly about that? Is that the consortium's viewpoint, or is that?
That's a consortium's viewpoint. Well, actually, no, I take that back. It's Boulder County.
Boulder County.
Preventing it, or,
That's
yeah.
not the consortium.
Right.
No,
I just
it's
want- I
not,
just
I'm
wanted
sorry.
Consortium.
It's not. They were presenting that to the consortium of cities,
Right.
that Boulder County is looking at 3 areas.
I just want to be clear because we've made use of that.
And I did say that in the beginning.
Yes, and it's been very, very effective for us, so I would want to, it probably won't affect us in the future, but would not want to have that limitation.
Yeah, I sat there very quiet.
Yeah.
But then the second one is an internet sales tax bill, which we've all been talking about over the years. Now that internet sales are around, they said around 10%. I think it's probably more than that, but hard to know that. It doesn't directly affect municipalities at this point. It would only be a state sales tax, but eventually it'll come down, it'll trickle down towards us. And then the third area of interest is the solar panel plots of land that would allow 8 to 10 houses that can't have roof mount solar panels. So that you would basically buy into this plot of land and get your solar power that way. And they went into the transportation sales tax projects. They have a whole list of trail projects, road projects, transit projects in the works that they're looking at doing this year and continuing from last year. And I also went to the museum on Saturday, and it was great. And I do want to tell the Historical Commission, thank you very much for such a great effort.
Great, thanks. Mr. Randall?
2 items. One of the questions that the board raised 2 weeks ago regarding the library tax millage that's being proposed for April was what the average cost was to a typical residential house. And we've included that information in your weekly digest. Assuming a $400,000 valuation, recognizing that residential properties are assessed at roughly 7 3/4 or 7.5% of their total valuation, the average tax bill would be $47.76 a year. We also showed you the information that for a comparably priced $400,000 commercial property, the tax bill would be $174, and that's because commercial property is assessed at 19% of its actual value, residential at roughly 7%, so almost a threefold difference. The second part had to do with the Citizens Academy. It seemed to be so well received. The first one that we held last fall. We are making plans for our second. We're accepting applications now. Applications will be accepted through March 19th. We're planning to do them on Wednesday evenings this year, beginning on Wednesday, April 7th, for the 6 consecutive Wednesdays.
Great.
That's all I had.
Thanks. Ms. Carberry?
Nothing for me.
Ms. Harden? Trustee Skumatz?
I just wanted to bring up one other thing about the Historic Committee. I spoke with them about possibly coming to a work session or something like that. I was having a meeting that looks at what properties, what they've already done, but also what properties might be sensitive coming up and that we should be looking out for, possibly budgeting or other things for. It seemed to me we have to be up front of those things as opposed to getting notes later that, oh, some building just bit the dust or something like that. So
That's a good idea.
the last time they've been here was well before most of these board members, so I think it's time for us to do that again.
Kind of like what the Open Space Committee did.
They need to be a little
Looking
bit
at
more of a
different
squeaky
properties
wheel,
and
those
looking
historic
at- yeah.
folks, so.
That's a good idea.
Great, thanks very much. With that, let's move to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items. And if you have comments, name and address if you wouldn't mind, Tara. But
Mike Jones, 1840 Vernon Lane, Superior. I just wanted to take a moment tonight on behalf of the Superior Mustangs to present to the mayor, the board of trustees, and the town of Superior this plaque, thanking you for a couple of things. One, your support of the Superior Mustangs over the years, and most notably in your support this year in helping us get the school board erected at the field, at Williams Field. Mustangs worked really long and hard to get that in there, and we just wanted to say thank you for all of your assistance, Juanita's staff and the town staff for helping us get that in. The school board should be a huge asset. It's been gifted to the town now by the Mustangs, and it should be a huge asset for years to come for all of the youth and activities that take place at Williams Field. So just want to take a moment to present this to you.
great. Well, thank you very much. And so let's do that. But I just want to say, the Mustangs is obviously a great organization in town. It's been a great benefit to the youth and, provides services for hundreds of kids over the course of the year. So I greatly appreciate all the effort. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right. We have to do a brief photo op, I suspect. Additional public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items. Yes.
My name's Louise Bennett, and I have the problem with the house at Maple and Second. Thank you for letting me make a few comments quickly. Regarding the house, we have contacted our mover, and I have a letter from him stating that he will try to do it in the next few days, but with the weather, it could be a problem. And but he's been notified by us, and he can do it and will do it. Also, we are working with the building department because we will then put the house down on our Coal Creek lots. I have a letter, the offer that the town gave me last August when I was trying to work out my problem, and I'd like to submit that too, just so you can see that I really was trying to do stuff, and that the town did have an email, because I feel very badly that the town prosecuted Mr. Mitchell and didn't let me know anything, and yet they knew we were working on it, knew where I was. And when I was here 2 weeks ago, and I was trying to see if the town might let me use the tap fees that I have on Coal Creek at Maple. And I just wanted to reference that when I got my offer last August, the town offered me $25,000 a lot plus the tap fees to go to Maple. Well, I already own the tap fees, but the town said I could take them with, to Maple if I accepted the $25,000 a lot. I don't know if you know very much about real estate in this area, but $25,000 a lot is very, even in our low market, it's very low offer. So I just have a copy of my offer that I got from the town, and I think it shows that we were in close contact. I hate that Mr. Mitchell had to be prosecuted because he's been, having to worry about getting an attorney and going to the county civil work. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't say that. But whatever it is, it's pretty hard. So anyway, thank you very much, and I hope that you're knowing that we are doing something. I wanted you all to know that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Additional public comment.
Hi, I'm Laurel Russell. I live at 212 West Maple Street. This is in regard to the house. A couple of comments I'd like to make about it. I've lived in this town for more years than some of you are old. My grandfather and father worked in the industrial mine. It's part of my soul, just like it's a part of Louise Bennett's soul, because my grandfather's also her grandfather. It makes me sad to think that everything has to be resolved in a manner that's big town, when this isn't a big town, at least not an original town, and not in our hearts. There are many extenuating circumstances surrounding this house. I hope that the town board is aware of all of the communications and the proceedings that have gone on between the Bennetts and the town staff regarding this move. Should the house be moved? Yes. Should the town staff accept some of the responsibility for the delays? Yes. Per Mr. Randall, the town itself had the historical house sitting on a property, but not on a foundation, for over a year. That was okay, but this isn't. I live about 200 or 300 feet from both of those properties, the historical house as well as the property to be moved. Personally, I have never seen anyone's life endangered by either property in its unfinished state. As a matter of fact, the farm equipment at the Grasso Park is probably as much or more of a threat for personal injury. Now there are court proceedings against our good neighbor, Mr. Mitchell, which will only add to the problem. It's my understanding that Mr. Mitchell's summons can be rescinded, and I would like to see that done. At this time, I believe that the Bennetts have everything in order to proceed with the move and the placement of the house. I hope common sense and correct information will prevail to help resolve this issue without adding court costs and lawyer fees to the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just to be clear, it's not the town board that's prosecuting anybody, and it's up to the judge to make a decision about rescinding things. So, it sounds like you have a good solution, but it's not a decision that the town board can make. So, additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items? Seeing none. Item number 6, presentations. We don't have any tonight. Item number 7, consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes of the January 25th, 2010 Board of Trustees meeting and the acceptance of the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee meetings. And number C has been pulled. We'll talk about that separately. Entertaining motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So we pulled item number C, and Mr. Randall and perhaps the town attorney can go over now the plan.
The consent agenda item 7C that the mayor is referring to was the approval of an amendment to a final site plan approval for the Rocky Mountain Fire Protection District regarding the proposed expansion of their facilities on Indiana. As a result of the item being pulled, according to the municipal code, the board's next step is to publish for a public hearing 2 months from now, at which time this final development plan amendment will be considered by the board. There's another action item, a couple of items down the agenda, regarding 3 zoning variations that were part and parcel with this particular application. But as a result of this being pulled, be glad to answer any questions that the board might have regarding the content of the application. But again, as a result of it being pulled, you've now scheduled a public hearing in 60 days, and both matters will be heard at that time.
So a question for the town attorney. Is it proper for us to ask questions and receive comment right now?
No,
or
we won't be able to.
Go over the application, or should we just put the hold on this to the public hearing?
We won't be able to discuss the application at all.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if it would benefit the viewing audience if they could go over a synopsis of what's happening without the board asking. Would that be reasonable?
That's fine. I don't have any issues. If this is not testimony, we can't take any comment on
Sure.
it. But
Summary of the proposed building addition, which was authorized as a result of a bond referendum that voters of the Fire Protection District approved last November, called for a significant increase in the Superior Fire Station number 5, which is the Superior substation. It calls for the addition of 2 additional bays, growing the site from 2 bays to 4, adding additional sleeping quarters for some recently added staff, as well as contemplated future staffing at the fire department, increasing the parking pad from its existing 17 to 30 spaces to accommodate that future staffing, a training room that also is usable, and I don't remember the exact dimensions, as a community meeting space, and some other amenities, some modest office expansion and the like. A rough cost estimate of about $2 million. As I referenced, there are 3 zoning variations, a very modest height variation as a result of the training tower, a significant side yard setback, which the town actually contributed to when we took some of the property from this particular site and accommodated a cul-de-sac in the adjoining Calmonte subdivision, and a front yard setback contributed to by 2 points. One, creating some vestibules on the 2 front entrances that don't currently exist, and an increased setback because of the modestly increased building height. From 40 feet is permitted, they're going to 42 and change. Those two contributing factors, enclosing the vestibules and the fact that they're 42 instead of 40, created the need for a front yard setback. Again, this had been before the Planning Commission for a public hearing. I don't believe there was any public testimony at that particular meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended it for the board's consideration, but we'll go over all of this in 60 days.
Great, and I don't
Just
want
to interrupt, I'm sorry,
Oh.
but it doesn't need to be 60 days. We could do it more sooner than that. It's up to
Within?
the board. Yes.
Within
It's-
60 days.
It's
Okay.
up to the board. I discussed it with Matt, and the first date we could do it is
No, it has
March
to be
8th.
published.
And
March
still
8th.
make the notification requirements. So.
Okay, so as soon as possible would be great.
I had a question regarding this.
Trustee D'Souza, just so long as not.
It's more policy for
Sure.
the board. And so who was notified in the surrounding neighborhoods about the development? I mean, I know there was a ballot issue and all of that, but we normally notify people when there's any major.
Notice of the plan amendment is required to be provided to any property owner within 500 feet of the property. I believe, I'm assuming that was done, Matt. Anything else that you know of regarding outreach?
So yes, that's correct. 500 feet to all property owned.
I'm sorry, and you're?
Matt,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
For the planning commission public hearing, we had to send out mailers to people within 500 feet.
And that was done by snail mail, regular postal mail?
Yep, and then we're also required for the public hearing to publish in the newspaper.
Okay. And would that include, I'm guessing that that would include the homes in Rock Creek that are east of?
Yeah, any property within 500 feet, yep.
Okay. All
It's
right.
radius.
Okay.
And just procedurally also, this is a joint building with the sheriff's office as well. Will they be coming forward?
The sheriff's department is a tenant in the fire department's building, and they actually occupy, I believe it's about, again, don't hold me to the exact size, it's 600 to 800 square feet of office space that they use as the Superior substation.
Got it. All right, thanks. With that, let's move to item number 8, adoption of a resolution setting a ballot question for April 6, 2010 regular town election relating to the library. Mr. Randall.
Item that has been discussed at least 3, maybe more occasions by the board, but within the last 2 weeks, at your last meeting, both a workshop session and a regular board meeting, the board was crafting the specific ballot language. The town attorney and I have attempted to take all of those conversations and incorporate the conversations, or incorporate the language that the board members had requested to be included, specifically language that referenced at least the first 2 years for maintenance of a contractual relationship with the city of Louisville, and a reference to the approximate cost to a typical home in the town of Superior. Both of that language or additions have been made in the proposal here. In addition, based on that discussion, we had added the ballot title, which was the Superior Louisville Library Services. And regarding timing, we presented this 2 weeks ago, knowing that we might need some buffer. This is the last meeting at which the board can act and still be assured that this ballot question would be on the April ballot.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Skumatz?
So, this is a strategic question, I guess, and that is, calling it the Superior Louisville Library Services, is that going to cause some negatives, given the, feedback that we've sometimes gotten from surveys saying, some people really react negatively to cooperations with Louisville, other people don't, but will the people who react negatively to this title?
I wouldn't want to surmise a guess. The most recent community survey data that we saw said that the community was not necessarily in favor of a tax to support library services. The rough ballot response to that survey question in November and December was 60% opposed to a levy, 40% in favor. However, the subsequent question that said, would you prefer that the town of Superior explore the creation of its own municipal library or maintain contractual relationship with the city of Louisville, the response was 75% in favor of maintaining a contractual relationship with Louisville. So I'm not sure where the assumption comes that, while there may be individuals, but don't believe that it's strong.
That's the most recent survey, but there were other surveys where there was more negative, and think the title starts to imply that it's joint for life, which the thing may not, the ballot may not imply. So that's-
Clearly, the ballot does not
Yeah.
imply. The board had asked that language be included that said for a minimum of 2 years.
I'm only discussing title, so yes, I'm just trying to come to a title that reflects it best. So,
Well, a synopsis of the board's discussion was that we want to be as clear as possible about what this means, and so, and that's the reason why the Louisville Library was added to the ballot, so it was more of a communication piece, really, to make sure that people understood exactly what was being proposed.
I'd be as happy with Superior Library Services, but I'm not going to go mad over it, so
Sure.
it's wherever everybody else feels.
Trustee
But that's the
D'Souza?
reason.
Yeah. Trustee D'Souza, I think I saw your pen.
Well, yeah, almost. I agree with Trustee Skumatz that it might imply, again, a lot of times people unfortunately do just kind of go down and vote based on title and not read the whole thing. And but again, I think that's also going to have to be our education piece, making sure that people understand that it's a limited time that's at least included in that. The other question I had was that the underlining will be part of the...
No.
It won't be. Oh, darn.
No.
I wish.
And I should have been clearer in mind that the emphasis that I've added there, and I guess I did say it. For emphasis, we've highlighted that portion of the ballot, which the town board has some
looks great.
discretion. I just wanted to bring out that while it reads a whole page long, you've got maybe a third of it that talks about the subject.
Yeah. I like that part of it. I think that's...
Sorry, I wish we could.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can't change font, can't underline,
Can't
do
Can't make
underline
bullets,
either.
can't
Yeah,
do
looks great.
With exclamation points.
No.
Darn.
Trustee Cirilli?
I'm having second thoughts about the limit, the language for at least the first 2 years.
Ditto that.
Because it's just making the purpose of the initiative more amorphous, and I think that's what led to my take on prior failure was that the prior failure of a ballot initiative for library services was too amorphous, and I would rather, I know what we're saying here, but
You think it makes
So-
it more
amorphous, that
So what is
years
your-
and then what?
Yeah. So what is your suggestion, just so we're clear?
My suggestion is to delete for at least the first 2 years, and also, and thereafter. And just go with, to be used for maintenance of contractual library services with the city of Louisville, for the purpose of providing library services and facilities to the town of Superior.
And that's
Trustee
exactly my notes. I wrote the same thing, but this is nothing new. We talked about this last time.
Trustee Skumatz?
And so I guess the vote last time didn't go in favor of that, but,
Right.
and I guess my concern is if we craft an option that provides a very, cost-effective or good option for a library branch or a library here in the city, I don't believe we can use these funds for that, and that's a big problem for me. I really want that flexibility after a certain period of time to be able to provide an option that's even better for the citizens of Superior.
But this amount there's no way that we could create any kind of library for $240,000.
It
We would have to go back
funds
to voters.
operation, and if we're able to craft something with the town center developer saying, you shall provide us a building, we're stuck. It's a problem.
I think any way you look at it, we're going to have to go back to the voters.
I disagree, but.
Trustee D'Souza?
Well, if we just take out the 2 years part, does that limit us then from using these for other things outside of Louisville?
That was going to be my question. If we take out, if it reads, to be used for maintenance of contractual library services with the city of Louisville, I need to know whether you want to keep the and for the purpose of providing library services and facilities to Town of Superior residents. If you don't use and, then this money could
Only
only
be
be
used
used
for Louisville.
for Louisville. And any amounts that aren't used would need to be refunded. So,
But if we keep the and
You
and
keep
just
the
take out the
and.
2 years,
right, then as long as if we keep the and, then you're giving yourselves another use for that money
that.
should the contractual services not be
Right.
the use of the money.
Well, I guess my comment would be, at the end of the day, we're not going to be doing anything different besides providing contractual services with the town of, with the city of Louisville, since we won't be able to afford our own library anytime soon, and that we would have to come back to voters if we were going to, I mean, even at $280,000 probably doesn't cover O&M, since the O&M of the Louisville library is in the order of $1 million, so we'd have to come back anyway, so.
I guess 1.5 mils is what I've heard from multiple library districts for the
Yep.
O&M.
I'm just trying to say that.
Louisville's maybe more expensive, but that's not our problem, may not.
It probably makes more sense to come back to the voters anyway if we decide to go that route, but that would be my perspective.
I would be okay with taking out the 2 years as long as we keep the and. So,
Okay.
Do you think that still makes it too amorphous? I don't want to risk this
I don't either.
failing for people not.
2
you know,
years. 2 years seemed to lock it in for me and make it real, much clearer, I thought, but
yeah.
Well, 2 years
I think it's
only
clear.
locks in the fact that that's what the minimum we have to do with the agreement. But it just throws open, what are you doing afterwards?
I think you're also sending a mixed message to the city of Louisville as well, whether we're really serious in working with them on library services.
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion.
I will go along with Mr. Sorelli and Deb over there about eliminating the 2 years and continue in case we have to.
Okay.
Before we have any motion, are we keeping in the $48 and $400,000 example, or?
That's what I had in mind. Now, I hope everybody thinks that's a good idea. I don't.
I do. It gives a great idea of how much library services would cost you in a year if you.
I think it makes it real to me, but again, somebody might say, I'm not paying $48. But
If you don't use it.
Information is always valuable, so.
Yeah.
Could I read the language now as it reads in my screen, so we're all on the same page? Does that work?
Yeah, if tonight's the night, it has to be right.
Right, and I took out a couple more words, hopefully to make it simpler, so let me read this. The revenues therefrom to be used for maintenance of contractual library services with the City of Louisville, Colorado, and to provide library services and facilities to Town of Superior residents. Does that work? I took out for the purpose of providing. I thought that simplified.
can you read it again?
Sure. The revenues therefrom to be used for maintenance of contractual library services with the City of Louisville, Colorado, and to provide library services and facilities to Town of Superior residents.
With the addition of, with the continuation of the $48 and all that.
Yes, all the rest
Yeah.
continues on.
Okay.
So how does that make it so that we have any option other than Louisville?
Because it says, and to provide library services and facilities to Town of Superior residents.
So you're saying that we could, so this to you says that we could stop paying Louisville if we've had a better option? I don't see that at all.
Oh,
It says we can do either or, I think.
No, it doesn't. It says,
And.
it says to be used for the maintenance of contractual library services with the City of Louisville. It does say that, and other things, but
We
it
can
does
add-
say that.
Or, you want and or?
No, I want 2 years because I know what that
Oh,
means.
okay. Well,
This doesn't mean.
I don't want to get in the
this-
middle of that argument.
I don't see how this could be interpreted to mean that we would have an option not to pay Louisville for contractual services, not just say we pay you $1 or anything like that. To me, that says we are locked into paying Louisville. Are you saying that's not true? It's fine if you're legally saying it's not true, but the layman's read of it.
Well, I'd suggest that we use or to provide library services and facilities to Town of Superior residents.
Well, then we're back into the, right from the beginning, we could be having some nebulous services.
Well, that
That's
would
my
be
problem.
nebulous and or at this point. So I don't think that makes a difference as far as nebulous services. So
I think killing the 2 years puts us down a slope of
Being too vague again.
yeah. I want to make sure we have services now and the best services we can in the future. And that may be Louisville, it may not. But I really want to make sure we have a process that we pass something that gives us a time period for doing appropriate citizen involving planning for that longer term. And I don't see how this says that we aren't with Louisville for the long term.
Well, we can go back to the language that I had first drafted. The first version you got said, the revenues therefrom to be used to provide library services and facilities to town of Superior residents, including but not limited to the maintenance of contractual library services with the city of Louisville. It was the other way around, which I think was a little clearer. We can go back to that order of words, because I think that is a little clearer, that we are saying, in general, we will be providing services. We can include within the provision of services some contractual services with the city of Louisville. That's how it was originally drafted, and if we're going to take out the 2 years, I think it makes more sense to do it in that order.
So the 2 years doesn't limit us from being in with Louisville forever. The 2 years just says, we know for the first 2 years we're going to be doing this. After that, it may be that we're with Louisville forever and ever, but by taking it out, we're not giving us any option.
Well, we always have the
It's
option
a danger of the profession, but I'm counting noses, and I'm seeing 4 people that say this referendum should be to continue contractual relationships with the city of Louisville. And if there's a desire to do something different in the future, it would be appropriate to go back to the voters.
That would be
1, 2, 3,
perspective.
4.
That news county.
I said it's
I mean,
a danger of the profession, but that's what I've heard.
And at the end of the day, I think that's the perspective that I'm coming from, because we're not going to be providing library services through any other mechanism for a
Quite some time.
Right. Way more than 2 years, since the town center is going to be much longer out than that.
And is it completely within our power to change that? I haven't, when we've had IGAs with Louisville before, we've not, 2 years down the line, we've been bummed about how they worked out or something, and is it totally within our power, or is it, all that kind of stuff. And if we were going to pass this and then 2 years from now go again, I don't know, or 3 years again, go back to them for something different, we could have no funding for libraries.
But it's a contractual agreement, and there's termination clauses of the contract.
Right, but there's 2 things to think about. If you limit yourselves to only providing contractual, if this mill levy is only for contractual services, the moment the contract ends, you guys have to start we basically have to
Rebating.
repeal this.
Yeah.
So.
Or you have a mill levy.
Or rebate it if there's any left.
Right.
So, that's just something to think about. Or submit a new ballot question saying, shall this tax that was formerly used for contractual services be used for blank? There's just another option.
Which I think is, at least personally, we're going to agree to disagree with this particular issue, but I think that's the clearest way to address this. The voters can decide whether or not they are happy with the contractual services with Louisville, or if they want to go through a different route. And I'm not sure that the board necessarily needs to make that decision.
So if we put it this way, then I think what we're saying is, so those people who want library services don't want Louisville in the long term will vote against this.
Probably so.
That would
So we may not have any
that way.
funding of libraries in the short or long term.
But if you're already at the library, the Louisville Library, and you want to continue services, which is really why you would be coming to vote for this.
And you're going to count that 52% or 51% of the ballot voters are willing to do that when that may not be the option people want in the long run. So
I feel
hedges are bad.
it's this, either yes or no. You vote for this, and it's yes or no. There's no gray areas. It's just, that is what it is. If you don't want to vote for it, you say no.
Then I would suggest that the language would be further simplified, which is to be used for maintenance of contractual library services with the city of Louisville, Colorado, and leave it.
If we didn't have the agreement with Louisville for library services, we wouldn't be going for a mill levy.
No.
That's the whole purpose of this. I mean, we wouldn't be going for a mill levy for library services that are undefined. And it wouldn't stand a chance we know it wouldn't pass. It didn't pass the last time. So I think my guess is the best chance of getting it to pass is that we tell them people what they get for and they have the choice. You know, the other choice, you do a mill levy to build a library if we think we want to do that. But right now, this is where my head is, and I think the more options we try to give ourselves, the more we stand the chance that it just becomes, what are they talking about? I'm not going to vote for this. And so I really lean towards let's just vote on target of this is how we're getting library services if this is how our citizens want it until we have a better option. Then we go back.
Basically,
Trustee D'Souza.
So I'm on mine with Deb, I guess. That's my head nod.
So I think that if we're only looking for the next 2 years, that I agree with what you're saying, that we want to be specific. I think also, though, that voters get tired of when we keep coming back to them saying, well, now can we have more money for this? Well, now can we have more money for this? And I thought originally that part of the intent was that we would have a library fund that we would be able to use beyond just 2 years. So I see what we're doing right now is we're talking about library services for 2 years, or we're seeing library services for more than 2 years, what we're asking to put on the ballot. And so I'm hearing that you're saying just do it for 2 years only.
Well, I don't see the agreement being a 2-year agreement.
I don't either. I think number of years has nothing to do with this ballot.
Your existing intergovernmental agreement automatically renews, one, assuming that the millage levy passes, and neither city gives the required termination notice, which is 180 days before the end of a fiscal year, by July 1 of any particular fiscal year.
One last statement is just going to be, if in a couple of years something really dramatically and great comes forward, we have no option to pursue it unless we go out and cancel the agreement and do a whole new ballot issue. And I can't see that as sensible. Makes no sense to me.
I guess from my perspective, I mean, we probably should wrap this debate up, but from my perspective, that makes the most sense because you're giving power to the residents as much as possible to decide what direction they like to proceed. So,
I also think that if this doesn't pass with all this gray area language, then coming back to the voters again and asking to build a library here in Superior, I think will be that much harder.
I believe that's the case because the mill levy would be much greater.
Depends.
Well, let's wrap this up. And the attorney, you had, what was your language that you ended up on?
Okay, if our purpose, let me just assume for a second that our purpose is to only continue library service with the city of Louisville, but not to put a deadline on, time frame on that, then now it would read, the revenues therefrom to be used for maintenance of contractual library services with the city of Louisville, Colorado. And then it would go on to which mill levy by way of example and not limitation equates to an annual cost of approximately $48.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Sorelli, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion. All in favor? Kuffner, Sorelli, Muckle, and Williams. Opposed is Skumatz and D'Souza. So that motion carries.
Now, is that to pass the resolution itself?
That's the resolution with the languages
With the languages.
modified.
Modified, okay.
Yeah. All right, let's see, that brings us to item number 9, which is Board of Adjustments, and that's been deferred until the, when the
Public hearing
comes back forward.
Well, actually, well, it's up to the board, but on item number 9, if you would like to open the public hearing and then continue it, then no new notice would be required, but that's entirely up to you.
We have to notice the other one anyway, so we might as well notice both
Okay,
together.
Just didn't want to
Sure.
know if you wanted
Yep.
to do that.
But if there are people here to comment,
I think there are lots.
I think there are people. Could we
Yeah,
ask for
but
show
they-
of hands or something?
What's the cost to continuing it?
It's,
Opening and continuing it? What's the negative for that?
there's no particular negative.
I prefer to hear if there's people here to speak about it.
Okay.
Took the trouble to come down.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll open the public hearing for the Board of Adjustments, public hearing and adoption of 3 resolutions regarding the variance of the Rocky Mountain Fire District. And Phyllis, you have proof of publication?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Randall?
Very briefly, as I indicated before, the proposed expansion of Fire Station Number 5, owned by Rocky Mountain Fire Protection District on Indiana Avenue. The proposed development plan consists of, or calls for 3 zoning variations. First is building height. The underlying zoning district allows a 40-foot building height. The proposal calls for a building 42.92 feet tall. All of that excess over the 40 feet has to do with the training tower. There are 2 setback, one on the side yard setback adjacent to the Cal Monte subdivision. The requirement calls for almost a 19-foot setback. There is only a 4.7-foot setback. It amounts to almost a 75% zoning variation. As the staff report indicated, some of that has been contributed to the town requiring some of the land to be set aside, taken from this property, so that the cul-de-sac that the town wanted could be built. And then the front yard setback, as I indicated, typically a building with almost 43 feet tall would require a setback of 38.96 feet. They're proposed at 29.4 feet. Some of that is, because of the enclosures of the vestibule and the front building elevation treatment that is roughly 3 feet higher than what the code would allow.
Any way that this could be shown diagrammatic?
Do we, my suggestion,
A diagram
my suggestion
of
would be
this.
just simply open the public hearing and then
Oh.
continue it until the time, I mean, unless you want to hear the variance application separately. I thought the purpose was to open it, continue it, just so we didn't need to republish.
No, the purpose was to open it and have public comment, so.
Okay.
So do we have a presentation at all?
I think they left.
I think the presentation left.
They did leave. They
Okay.
thought we were done for the night.
Yep. All right. So any questions from the board? We don't have the applicant here, so. Trustee Skumatz.
So my question is, when's the last time we've given a height variance to any building, municipal or private or any? And are there pictures of how this will affect views from homes, the mountain views of homes that are in line?
I think I can answer one of those questions, since the Board of Adjustments has never met within the 12 years that I've been here, so I suspect that we haven't given any variance anytime recently.
Not variations, you have included planned developments.
And PDs.
In PDs that have had building heights that were taller than what the underlying zoning
Right.
otherwise would have allowed.
So,
And the photo simulations you requested
Yeah.
left with the applicant.
okay. So in case, what I'm going to recommend is that if there's anybody here that can't come to the next, during the public hearing to make comments now, and otherwise it'd be best so we can keep this all in one contained segment to actually come to the next meeting. But if there's anybody who couldn't make it to the next meeting, that would be great.
Wouldn't be the next meeting.
Well,
Or
the
March 8th.
during when this is coming back around, so March 8th.
March 8th.
A month.
Okay. Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to continue this to the March 8th meeting. Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second. Trustee Kuffner, all in favor? All right, that's continued. With that brings us to item number 10, Liquor Licensing Authority Board. Mr. Randall, do you want to start us out?
Very briefly, change your hats now from Town Board to Board of Adjustment to the Superior Liquor Licensing Authority, which I also believe this is the first time that this board has convened. Issue before you is the issuance of a new liquor license based on an application submitted from Rock Creek Pizza Dough Company, located at 1631 Colton in the Rock Creek Village. This is I believe they opened last September in the space that had previously been occupied by Serrano's Coffee. The application is requesting a beer and wine license. All of the applicable requirements have been met, with the exception of we have not yet received the report from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation regarding their fingerprints, which they typically say is roughly a 90-day process. Staff and the Boulder County Sheriff's Department, based on everything else we've seen, are recommending that the board authorize the issuance of the license, but it would be contingent upon ultimately an acceptable CBI report coming in. If for any reason the CBI report comes in and shows anything of concern, the license would be pulled.
Great, thank you, Mr. Randall. With that, I'd like to open the public hearing. So, you have proof of publication?
Yes, I do.
So the verbiage that the lawyer has given me, I'm just going to read off my cheat sheet. So the purpose of this hearing is to receive information, data, and testimony by interested parties to enable the local licensing authority to determine whether or not the license applied for should be approved or denied. Persons wishing to speak should give their names and addresses when at the podium. The town clerk has submitted her preliminary findings and report to this authority. The town attorney has reviewed the report, and I will accept into evidence the preliminary report, the original application, and related papers marked Exhibit A. The petitions and written affidavits marked Exhibit B will be accepted into evidence. Ms. Town Attorney, have you reviewed the application?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Do I have a motion to accept the application and exhibits as submitted without testimony? Motion by, let's see, we're not, Commissioner, perhaps, D'Souza. Second by Commissioner Skumatz. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak concerning this application? And those you'll be doing the swearing in?
Yeah. I could probably do everybody to do the oath at the same time.
Yes, so
Okay, so-
are there other interested parties? If there are, then if you can stand
If you
and
wish to speak.
raise your right hand. Okay?
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence which you are about to give before the County Superior's Liquor Licensing Authority Board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Phyllis.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I'm ready to give you my presentation. Are you folks
Okay?
ready?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and name and address if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. My name is Ada Shania. My address is 1631 Colton Road, Superior, Colorado 80027. I'm the president of Rock Creek Pizza Dough Company. I'm representing myself, Rock Creek Pizza Dough Company, obviously, and my business partner, who's a 50% business partner. He's at work this evening, that's why he can't make it. And he is the treasurer and the manager of Rock Creek Pizza Dough Company. The idea of being able to order your pizza on 4 different kinds of doughs came from my business partner, Todd Lassard's friend, Nat Gachow, who started Portland Pies in Maine. Nat Gachow started with a pizzeria smaller than Rock Creek Pizza. It only had 5 seats. He then proceeded to open up Portland Pie Pizzeria and Brewery. He now owns 3 and just recently opened up a dough plant called It'll Be Dough. He sells to supermarkets, restaurants, schools, and distributors across the East Coast. My business partner, Todd Lassard, is 39 years old and has been in the restaurant business for 21 years. He has worked at Brunswick Hotel Resort in southern Maine, Old Orchard Beach, where he managed the kitchen for 7 years. He then worked as a chef at the Dungrass Golf Course for 2 years in Old Orchard, Maine as well. He then managed the Rack Ski Resort Inn, restaurant, and kitchen, where he obtained experience serving alcohol on a daily basis for over 2.5 years. Then he was made a job offer by a friend who wanted him to move back to Portland at Rivalry Sports Bar, where he managed the bar part-time and the kitchen full-time for over 2 years. I myself have been a waitress in several restaurants in Boulder and first started serving alcohol at Senior Miguel's, working for Susie and Ralph Chacon. I worked at Senior Miguel's as head waitress and hostess for over 2 years, and part of my job was training new staff members on how to wait tables, open wine, and serve food. I then worked at the Gold Hill Inn restaurant in Gold Hill, Colorado, for Frank and Barbara Finn. I worked with their 2 sons, Chris and Brian. My job was fill-in bartender, hostess when Brian Finn had the evening off, and head waitress. I was their #1 wine salesperson. Therefore, was always sent to the table to greet customers and to talk about our wines. I understand that in order to serve alcohol, I must ask for identification, proving that the customer is over 21 years of age. I know that a driver's license, passport from any sovereign nation, U.S. military ID, and an alien visa, green card, or work card with photo and valid expiration date are all valid identifications. I plan on having Oedipus Incorporated train my employees and my manager on formal liquor training. Our assistant night manager,
Nat, is trained in tips. Our patio seats 30 people, and we'll have an emergency exit-only door on it once we obtain the liquor license. The inside of the restaurant seats about 20 people. I do have a copy of the Colorado Liquor Code and plan on obtaining an ID check guide from Oedipus Inc. as well. I understand should one of my employees violate the liquor code that I must investigate the incident, have a police officer issue a summons, and terminate their employment immediately. My business partner, Todd Lassard, and I feel that there are not enough establishments in the local area that serve beer and wine. I have had customers walk in and ask if we served alcohol, then leave and not order any food because we did not. We feel that we are losing food sales without alcohol license. Based on a researcher, our food sales should go up 14 to 20% should we obtain a beer and wine license. I believe our ratio of alcohol to food will be approximately 8%. I also understand that we are only allowed to purchase up to $500 per year of alcohol from a liquor store, and that all receipts must be saved. And that should a customer want to remove alcohol from the premises, only a 750 milliliter bottle of wine is allowed to be removed, and that the bottle must be opened inside the restaurant and partially consumed before the customer can take it home. I now would like you to try our pizza if you'd like, so you can compare our product to other pizzas.
Maybe.
We already have, we're regulars.
Yeah, so,
Is that okay? Can we give you some pizza? And
actually, I
some
think I'm
plates?
going to defer on that
Okay.
because it
Sorry.
potentially would look like a
Later.
financial.
We can leave it here for later.
Yes. How about you leave it with the audience in case anybody is hungry?
And I have had a survey done, and Max Scott will be representing the results of the survey.
Thank you very much. Take additional testimony.
Just so the authority knows, you have accepted the application as submitted, so additional testimony regarding the petition is not required. Of course, you're welcome to hear it if you would like to.
Would like to hear it.
Okay.
You would like to hear it?
Just a quick synopsis.
I was previously sworn. My name is Max Scott. I own and operate Oedipus Incorporated. We're located at 1216 Tipperary Street in unincorporated Boulder County. We performed a survey and pre-filed the survey documents together with a report. And do you folks have a copy of the report? I'm pretty sure you do. On page 5 of the report is the defined neighborhood, which is your municipal jurisdiction. Shows the site location, blue shaded area on businesses, party interest, business owners or managers in blue, and the residences that we surveyed in pink, that being a resident of the defined neighborhood for a period of greater than 6 months out of the calendar year per the definition section of the Liquor Code. A person had an opportunity to sign for or against, write in any reasons they wanted to communicate to the Liquor Authority, and we kept track of refusals, not at homes, and returned to some of those. We had a briefing sheet which explained what a beer and wine license is, days and hours of operation, and beverages that can be sold, and then what this particular concept is. You've already heard that testimony, and we had a copy of the menu. A number of people were already familiar with the outlet, and we got a lot of favorable comments. It's my understanding that Mayor Pro Tem Skumatz has been in the restaurant. At least she recognized you. So
I've been there.
maybe
Same here.
with all of that, on page 2 of the report, item 1, I'm telling my client we did what we contracted to do, and we that's item 1. Under item 2, we contacted 198 parties and interests, 36 businesses signing favoring, 148 residences favoring, 2 against. And then we had 8 people who were opposed to the license and just verbalized that, so we include that in our statistics. And we had 4 people that favored it but didn't prefer not to sign the petition. In other words, they were parties in interest also. In this survey category, we had about 95% favoring the issuance of the license. On the petition document, we allow people to sign and write in a reason. Some people do that, and we had 5 abhorrence of alcohol, which, in my opinion, based on our understanding of Colorado case law and involvement in 2 Real 106 decisions to include 2 that were published, those are not a need reason for being against the license, but we did have 5 people who said they felt their needs were being met. If you buy that argument and subtract out the abhorrence of alcohol, then we have 97% favoring the issuance of the license. The margin of error in the two categories is 2.2%, well over 50%, and shows a need for a new beer and wine license. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Just
If you, yeah.
Have one of these at home
so you
already.
can see what we're serving the beer and wine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You guys already have food.
But not real food.
Is there additional public testimony regarding this matter? Questions from the board? I have a couple. So you've mentioned, obviously, over serving alcohol is a significant issue for our locality, the state, and the nation in general, leading to deleterious health effects. I think that you've mentioned two different ways that you'll understand liquor serving training or how that would be obtained. Can you describe that for me, please?
The liquor training? I'll answer the question.
Go ahead. I figured
My company, two of us in my office, my wife and myself, are what are called vendors that is certified to do liquor training with Colorado Liquor Enforcement. If you go to the website, you'll find us and some other folks there, to include police departments. So we submitted our training materials. They approved them. The training consists of a diagnostic test. People take the test, and then we discuss each one of the questions to make sure that they understand it. And there's a PowerPoint presentation that includes how to document things that may happen and potentially be a violation, like if somebody's intoxicated and you refuse them at the door, then they get in a car wreck and said that they were consuming at the outlet, how to make a log entry to prove that you didn't do that, the way to confiscate false IDs, how to look up false IDs with some on-hands training with the ID checking guide, and false ID exemplars that we pass out and also use in the PowerPoint. We go over signs of intoxication and how to refuse service, how to take an ID, not cause a confrontation, when to call the police, and then at the end of the training, they then have to take a test and pass the test. The requirement is to get at least 80% on the test, and the test covers all classes of liquor and 3-2 beer licenses. So that's a summary. If they pass, then the restaurant is issued a certificate. There's a letter with the restaurant's name and people that attended, and each individual gets a card that they can put in their billfold, and the training is good for 2 years.
So hopefully Rock Creek Pizza and Dough Company will be a successful and thriving business, which means that they would hire employees over the course of time. The training you're describing would be for current employees. How would that training be passed down?
As people get hired, we can update the training.
And would that be a requirement of the license?
That's a question for you.
I would like to do that, actually, anyway. We probably would have to, see him, I'm guessing, every 2 months when we started this process. Although we don't change our employees often, just to let you know that, which is good so far. But yes, we would just have to keep adding them to it, so.
Nat is also TIPS trained, so he could become a certified TIPS trainer, and then they could just continue that as an in-house process. Are you certified as a trainer?
No, not
You could do that.
By the way, I'm Nathaniel Green. I'm the superior as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not certified as a
If you could, at the mic, if you're going to speak, sorry.
I'm not certified as a trainer per se, but I have went through the TIPS program actually twice now for a couple of different companies I've worked for. It's a great program, and it just educates you on proper procedures as far as serving alcohol and such.
And that the TIPS program is run through the Liquor Licensing Board or the Sheriff's Department, or I forget how this actually works.
It's a private company.
Private
I'm not
company.
exactly sure who administers it. There's several programs out there. I don't think that's the one that's administered by the Colorado Restaurant Association, but I could be wrong on that. That's another training program. And that's something, if she joins the Restaurant Association, they also have a server training program that's certified with the state.
Okay.
So I become trained and then start training everybody else.
Perfect. Okay. Mr. Randall, you brought up the subject that the background check hasn't been completed because their fingerprints have either not been filed or...
They've been filed, they've not
and
been complete. Yes, we've not received the report from Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
And the timing of that, you think, I mean, you're not speaking for the CBI, but...
This is quite typical. It takes them a long time.
We are told on average it takes 90 days in order for CBI to complete their research and report.
So a question for the attorney then, how would you recommend proceeding if we were to approve this license? Would it be dependent upon...
It would be on the condition that the fingerprints and background investigation don't reveal any issues.
To the satisfaction of the town's attorney or
Yes,
town's...
we can do that. I think let me see how it's drafted in the resolution, but yes. That would be fine. I'd be happy to look at them and make sure that they're okay, and if that's acceptable. You can either do it to the town clerk or to the town attorney.
Okay. Questions from the board?
That was your
Okay.
public hearing.
Yep. Any public comment regarding this matter? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Actually, the town attorney likes me to have a motion in a second to close the public hearing, so...
Actually, you don't need. If you can just close it.
Okay, I'm going to close it then. It's closed. So additional board comment. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skomatz or Commissioner Skomatz?
I'd like to move resolution number R-LLA-1, Series 2010, a resolution of the Board of Trustees, acting as the liquor licensing authority of the Town of Superior, adopting findings of fact and conclusions pertaining to the application for a beer and wine license by Rock Creek Pizza Dough Company and granting the application.
Second.
It's a motion and a second by Commissioner Souza. Discussion. All in favor? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Congratulations, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. So,
There'll be free pizza out in the lobby if you
in case anybody's hungry.
This might clear our room now.
Right.
Thank you. Nice addition.
So the town attorney, they do turn around those fingerprints and things sooner than 90 days in a criminal case, don't they?
Thank you. Yeah. Apparently, a lot of this has to do with some of the illegal alien checking that they're doing. And it's really delayed things.
All right. Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 11, adoption of a resolution approving a real estate purchase agreement for a 10-acre parcel with the men kicks. Mr. Randall?
Actually, agenda item 11 and 12 are interwoven, but the first item is a resolution approving the purchase of a 10-acre parcel. Little history, it has long been a board goal in an effort to retain and expand the Boulder Valley Hockey Foundation, the Boulder Valley Ice Facility that we've been blessed with sitting across the street. About 5 months ago, in September, the board approved an option agreement to purchase a 10-acre parcel from Mr. and Mrs. Menkick. That is the northernmost 10 acres of the 160-acre town center, again, across the street. The option agreement calls for a purchase price of $100,000 per acre, or $1 million, and the agreement that's before you says the closing will be expedited. It'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow, no later than the 24th. As I said, the second agenda item pertains to how the town intends to use that property, which is immediately for the continued operation of the existing Boulder Valley Hockey Foundation ice facility. But as the board is well aware, the town and Boulder Valley Hockey have been in intense discussions regarding a subsequent development agreement, which will, in very short order, I'm hoping, we will be in a position to unveil plans for a significant new construction of a 2-rink facility, 95,000 square feet, with a number of additional amenities. But again, the first item before you is the purchase agreement to actually pull the trigger on the purchase of the 10 acres, which will facilitate our first foray into seeing the town center developed.
All right, thanks. Questions from the board? Trustee Skomatz?
So how should we purchase this particular 10 acres and this facility ends up on that 10 acres? How much of a difference will there be in walking distance between the businesses that are like Chicago, Super Joe's, et cetera, to the ice facility now versus under where the new place will be?
Very limited. We've looked at 2 different derivatives of the plan. We've looked at, the existing facility sits in an east-west configuration, and we've looked at putting two facilities side by side, east-west. We've also looked at spinning it 90 degrees and having a north-south orientation. So it's conceivable that the front door might be closer to Marshall Road extended than it sits today. But we're talking maybe at most a couple hundred feet from where it sits today.
A couple hundred feet seems like a lot for walking distance. I mean, not theoretically.
I'm talking about the size of a sheet of ice and taking a single sheet facility to a double sheet facility.
So are you saying the new facility would be maybe 100 to 200 feet farther from?
No, bigger. And the doorway to that facility would therefore, I can't tell you where the doorway is going to be.
Okay.
But you asked, it might be a couple hundred feet further from the new entrance than what exists today.
Thanks.
Additional questions? Anybody here that would like to speak to this particular matter? I'm just guessing. Show of hands, people who are interested in having this proceed. Okay. I think I do that too. Mr. Sales.
Hi, my name is John Sales. I live at 1305 South Pitkin Avenue in Superior, Colorado. Again, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for supporting this opportunity. I know that many times that you sit here and hear gripes and groans, but this is a big deal for us and everybody in this room, from the employees to the director of hockey, the coaches, the mentors of our kids, the intro to skates, the figure skating that we hope to bring to this two-rink facility, sled hockey for the handicap, a community room for this community. So many things we hope to bring to this. It's not over yet because we certainly have to raise a lot of money to make this happen, but we're trying every means we possibly can. But to support our new lease agreement, right now we have a month-to-month lease with our current landlord, and for you guys to be our new landlord is a big deal because we feel like we're comfortable there for a little while we try to achieve our goals. But there's a lot of people in this room, and thank you guys for everybody for being here today, because most of these people live in Superior. These are not just parents that support their kids here, but they're people that actually play adult hockey. We have a lot of great programs, and we're excited to expand them. We have a lot of people that come from all over Boulder County. We hope to have a lot of hockey tournaments. We hope to have a lot of high school hockey tournaments. We have a junior bison program that has been very successful, run by Brent Culleton, who was the former captain of the Rocky Mountain Rage. And one of the reasons he stayed in this community and lives in Superior is because of this incredible rink that we have here. It's a very special place, and we really love having him here. We love having Matt Huckins, who is a mentor of our kids. But we also love the Skate for Santa. We love all the things that we hopefully can continue to give this community. So thank you for all your support. We really appreciate it.
Mr. Sales, if I could just briefly, can you give us a kind of a timeline of where the foundation is, or the hockey club? I'm not sure what the right terminology is at the moment.
Yeah. Brian Holtman, are you here? Mm-hmm. All right. Brian, come on up for a little bit, because Brian is on the development committee. Mm-hmm. We have been working very closely with Scott, and certainly we've looked at a lot of different financing options because we want to make sure that this is done the right way. We've actually been focusing on the size of the facility and how we could generate a lot of revenue through hockey tournaments and so forth. We want this to be a beautiful place so that it can be a great anchor to the town village, which of course is your ultimate goal, and we're serious about that. Again, we've talked to a lot of different people. We've got a developer, we've got a schematic, we've got pro forma. This is not the best economy in the world, but we're hoping to get this done within 2 years. Brian may be able to be a little bit more detailed on that subject.
Good evening. Thank you.
Name and address, if you wouldn't mind, Taylor.
2895 Lafayette Drive, Boulder. We've worked with Scott and his staff to define a piece of ground there on the north side. We're currently working on 2 possible schematics that Scott indicated. One of the big issues is business interruption. We're not in a position where we can tear down the old rink and start up and get it done in time to keep our programs continuing, youth programs, the league programs and such. So we're working very hard to come up with an affordable and practical plan where we can at least leave our existing rink maybe kind of bare bones out there while we're under construction, but at least skatable while we build a facility either adjacent or directly south of it. And we're working hard to make that footprint work with the extension of Marshall Road, the room that takes, and to leave Mr. Menkick some sellable, marketable land on the south side of the Marshall Road extension. So we have worked with a experienced rink developer, people who've built rinks in Littleton and are working on the Edgewater project with the city of Edgewater. So they're local people, hockey people, and they've built rinks. So they're ahead of us in terms of, we built the temporary one, but they built the kind of facility that I think you people and we certainly would like to see built.
So timeline, do you think, when would you anticipate, once again, you don't have a crystal ball, none of us do, who knows how the economy will turn, but do you have a guess of when this new facility would open?
Well, open is the last thing in the puzzle. First, we need to make sure that we can get it financed in this environment, of which we've looked at a couple of different structures. Our current board resolution is to look to approach it 2 ways. One is private financing through some kind of bond subscription, where we would have basically private bond subscription to raise enough money to be able to cash flow the facility. The other possibility is that we have been pretty diligent in the last 5 years in terms of paying off our existing debt, and we have enough equity, and with a capital campaign perhaps, or a couple of significant donations, we could possibly go I don't know if there is such a thing anymore, but a conventional financing route through banks. I've had preliminary discussion with a couple of banks, a couple of local banks, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that we may be able to put together a deal like that. At that point, depending on the the interest rate, we would have to look and make sure that we can make it cash flow at that point, that we can support that debt. But that's where we're at the current point. The guesstimated construction schedule once we got underway is about 14 to 18 months. But it's, I don't mean to evade your question, but I can't tell you when we're going to be done until I know when we're going to get started. So.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Additional public comments about this? Board questions or comments about this? Trustee Skumatz?
So, one of the questions that came, I had a coffee buzz this last weekend, and one of the questions that came up from a resident was, what will happen to the old building? Is it something that is going to be reused, can be reused, that can be, can it exist as a building in some other form elsewhere in town, or, anyway, what can happen with the building?
It's not a decision that's been made. We have looked extensively into the reuse of the existing building and recognizing that it was built as a temporary structure. The foundations were not sufficient for the kind of facing that the town would expect in a permanent facility. Not to say that it couldn't be used, but it would be a very expensive proposition to try to reuse it. The ultimate disposal of the building is also a subject of some of our negotiations in the development agreement. As it currently stands, the town has the right of first refusal to that building as a result of some agreements that were entered into when that temporary facility was placed there. But we've talked about some other options, but to say with any definition what it was going to be, I mean, it's just premature.
I have a couple more questions. One is, as part of the lease and whatever agreement, can you restate that there is or is not some kind of meeting space that the town can use, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, again, not in the lease agreement, not in the real estate purchase agreement. Every one of our discussions regarding the development agreement, which is the subsequent construction of this expanded permanent facility, have included public meeting space.
Bigger than this room? That would probably be
Yes.
the key. All right. Not, yeah. And whether it's part of a later agreement or not, that sort of depends on, that if those later things, since everything cascades, if what's coming later isn't something I'm happy about, then I probably would not be voting for earlier things too. So sorry if you think they're out of place, but I think it's part of the whole package. And I don't know, so I don't know how much, one of the reasons that we're doing this is because we want to maintain the health of other businesses in Superior, not, that they have shoulder, they have spillover benefits. And so is a lot of food being served in this place? Is it something where we're encouraging, use of restaurants in the rest of town, et cetera, et cetera?
We know that the existing facility generates approximately 500,000 patrons on an annual basis. I've had businesses ask me what age and what time of day do they use it. I can't give you an answer to that. Maybe there's somebody in the audience that can. Certainly bringing that kind of a traffic generator is the reason that this particular project has been on the board's goal list, to retain this particular economic engine and expand it and make sure that it never leaves our borders. That's what's on the table at this juncture. In terms of what's included in the future facility, that again is all discussion in our development agreement. I know there's been discussion about some customer service amenities within there. I don't think there will be anything in there that would be necessarily competitive or contrary to what the town wants to see within its town center.
I just got an answer, but all right, fine. Thanks.
Additional questions or comments?
I had one.
Trustee D'Souza?
And this might have been in the part of the other agreement, but if there is, if for some reason I think this has the term by which either BVHF or the town terminates contract and that sort of thing, is there any uses that we are prohibited, or for the purchase of land, can the town use that for any I guess, thing that it wants? I mean, is there specific
The 10
uses?
acres?
Yeah.
It is currently zoned agricultural.
Right.
One item when the board will be looking at is the approval of a re-subdivision of that particular parcel, and at some point in time, we're going to be zoning it. So the board will be the one that determines the permitted list of permitted special and conditional uses.
Okay, but nothing in the contract?
Nothing.
Okay. That's all.
Certainly not in these contracts. There will be some other things I envision in the development agreement. The board has seen some of the drafts of those development agreements, but we haven't brought that to closure yet.
Okay.
Other questions? I have another question for you then, Mr. Rendell. Obviously, this is hopefully a linchpin in the development of the town center. With the current configuration of the land that we purchased, would that interfere with any potential development, would you say?
No. One of the accommodations, as we've talked about, is a modest curve in the extension of Marshall Road to the east. That is not the way that the Van Meter Town Center plan, but it doesn't take any property out of play. As I believe it was Mr. Volkman indicated, we've worked very hard with the existing underlying property owner, Mr. Menkik, to make sure that the configuration of the land, the anticipated future configuration of the extended road still leaves development options on the south side of the extended road before you get into the floodplain floodways. So we've gone to great extent to accommodate everybody's interest here.
Okay, thank you. I guess my comment is that, this has been a long time coming, that the hockey club has been a great partner to the town. Skate with Santa was brought up earlier. That is a great event that our residents really enjoy. There's plenty of hockey players in town. That's not the reason from my perspective, however, to be supporting the rink. My purpose is that this is a first step in the development of the town center that we've really been having a hard time getting going, and I think this is a great way to jumpstart it. And I think there's going to be significant business revenue associated with the numbers of people coming into town, either going to the coffee shops, going to Old Chicago. So I think this is, in the long term, is going to be a net positive. So I'm strongly in support of this.
Trustee D'Souza. Along the same lines. And I think it is a great economic asset to our town, but I have to say that I really do like the fact that there's so many dedicated kids, at least that I've seen, that get up early in the morning, and I've just seen the wonderful changes and positive effects it's had on kids in the community, and I think it's wonderful to be able to support something that I think is such a good thing for the youth and also for the adults in our community. So I'm really happy that we've been able to, with everyone involved, work out something.
Great. I think we have additional.
My name is Fred Linder, 1027 Paragon Drive in unincorporated Boulder County. I'm a player, coach, parent, and also owner of Pro Skate in Lafayette. And we would be very interested in having not a temporary facility, but a permanent facility, and would entertain moving our business a little bit closer to the rink. So as part of the development of the town center, I think you'd see a lot of businesses fall into place.
We would love to have Pro Skate come here.
Thank you.
We could do a little economic development right now.
Sign up.
Additional board comment. Oh, yes.
We can offer free pizza.
My name is Sean Killian. I live at 519 Zircon, and I've lived in the area for about 10 years, and in great part because of the facility. I run a business called Planet Hockey, and we travel the world training hockey players and putting on camps, and this is one of the facilities, and happens to be the one in our backyard that we utilize to train youngsters at 6 a.m. sometimes, adult players, but it's run by a great group of people very committed to growing hockey. They put a lot of their own personal time in. And I know this project has been one that they've been working on for some time. It's not an easy project, but it's certainly one that would benefit not only the local kids, but would bring in a significant amount of people from the outside. We're involved with a lot of tournaments and hockey events around the world, and the numbers that would come into the community of hockey parents who tend to be a little crazy on purchasing food and hockey equipment and filling up the Suburbans with gasoline, that type of thing, would be significant, no doubt. And it would be knowing the people I know in this club done right, and that's a big part of this, to draw people into the community. So we've been fortunate that we've had what we've had without question, but the next step would certainly provide more of a service locally and bring some dollars into the community.
Great, thanks.
I wanted to say how glad I am that this has come forward, and for a couple of reasons. One being what I've heard before, with it being, I think it's really important to kickstart the town center. But I also think it's great that we've been able to craft an agreement that makes sense for both the town and the facility, and that the town gets a reasonable return and all that sort of stuff. It's a great agreement that's doing citizens good, doing the facility good, and doing the town good. So,
very good. Thanks. Additional comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skomatz.
I'd like to move Town of Superior Resolution Number R-7, Series 2010. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a real estate purchase agreement with George and Kyung Minkik for a 10-acre parcel.
Motion by Trustee Skomatz. Is there a second? Trustee D'Souza. Further discussion? Seeing none. Phyllis? Sorry.
We're spending money.
Sorelli?
Yes.
D'Souza?
Yes.
Kefner?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes?
Skumatz?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Great, that motion carries. So look forward to a long, associated with this is item number 12, and I'll entertain a motion as well. Motion by trustee Skumatz.
I'd like to move Town of Superior Resolution R-8, Series 2010, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a lease agreement with the Boulder Valley Hockey Foundation.
Motion by trustee Skumatz. Is there a second? Trustee Williams, further discussion? Guess we're not really
No, you're not.
spending any money, so all in favor? Unanimous. Great. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody, for coming to the meeting. You know, it's time out of everybody's busy schedule, and I really appreciate it. And it's, I think we'll have a long-lasting, fruitful relationship, so more to come. So.
It's freaking rare.
I was just thinking that same comment. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, this is a positive? Okay.
Mr. Randall, anything else to come
No
before
further
the board
business.
tonight? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Mr. Kuffner. Trustee Kuffner, I'm sorry. I'm going to make the transition. I will.
I have a question.
Yes.
I might be out of place.
Yeah,
The
it
date
wasn't.
is
That's
the
what-
last meeting, we got a report from the town
Not
manager
on this.
pertaining to the
On
house
the,
over there, and I haven't heard anything
yeah.
about it tonight.
On the, Rocky Mountain Firehouse, yeah, Firehouse, not on this. Yeah, right. Why, where was
It's,
it? I looked all over
it's
on the
part of a
website.
negotiation, so we should probably do that during an executive session, honestly.
Why would I
We should
have
probably do it,
this?
we can add an executive session to the, I don't think we can add that now,
You know what I'm saying?
to the next meeting, though. So. Mr. Randall, we're adding an executive session to discuss contract negotiations to the next meeting.
Oh, we're back to our original three again.
Okay? Anything else to come before the board?
Just a reminder that it would be good to put Historical Commission on the future.
Yes.
And just a question that
I just wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Trustee
I'll
Williams.
let you bring it up.
Thank you. I was wondering where the Planning Commission minutes are on the Rocky Mountain fire.
I didn't see them.
They weren't done.
Yeah, we didn't have them in our packet.
Yeah, and I looked on the website and I couldn't find that either.
They just got finished,
Okay.
so we will have them.
It'll be ready for the
Okay.
public hearing.
All right. Perfect. Yeah.
Anything else to come before the board?
I move we adjourn.
Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Is your request, real estate,
Next meeting.
is your request for real estate?
Yes.
I'm going to this.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town.
In fact, I'm going to.
Oh, wait, 5 to 7. Oh, I might be able to picture part of it. Hey, is that the logo?
Yes.
That's cool. I like that. That's a nice one. Huh.
That's a bummer.
I got a status report. Thursday.
That would be nice.